Desperate mother pleaded, "Let me warm your bed. Just please give my child food." And then Maria had been walking for hours, her feet aching in worn-out shoes, the soles almost completely gone. The winter wind cut through the thin jacket she wore, but she could not stop. She held her young son Leo close to her chest, trying to shield him from the cold. His small body trembled against her, and his cheeks were red from the biting wind. Every step she took was heavy, every breath visible in the cold air, and yet she kept moving. She knew that stopping meant risking worse for both of them. Hunger had become a constant companion in their small, broken apartment, and today it had become unbearable. Their apartment was on the top floor of a building that had seen better days. The paint on the walls peeled in long strips, and the windows rattled whenever the wind blew. Maria had tried to seal the cracks with old cloths and newspapers, but the cold still came in. Leo often slept on a thin mattress on the floor, and Maria shared her small blanket with him, leaving herself shivering. The heater in the apartment had broken weeks ago, and repairs were too expensive. Tonight, as she walked past empty streets, Maria thought about the warmth she could only dream of. Maria's thoughts were filled with worry. She had always believed she could handle hardships, but hunger had a way of breaking people in a way nothing else could. Leo's stomach growled again, and she felt a pang in her heart. Her son, bright and curious just weeks ago, now had dark circles under his eyes, and he looked thinner every day. At 6 years old, he should be laughing and playing in the snow, but instead he clung to her, shivering and quiet. She had tried everything she could think of. Food pantries often ran out, shelters were crowded, and begging on the streets barely earned enough coins for a loaf of bread. Maria remembered yesterday, when she had waited in line for hours at a local food bank, only to be told that supplies had already run out. The volunteers were polite, but Maria's stomach sank as she watched other families leave with bags full of groceries, while she held Leo's hand, empty-handed. She wanted to cry, but she could not. Leo was watching her, and she had to be strong for him. Her mind wandered to better times. She remembered when Leo was born, the soft glow of hope in the hospital room, the dreams she had for him. She had imagined him growing up with books and toys, laughter and warmth, not hunger and shivering nights. Maria's husband had left years ago, unable to handle the responsibility, and she had promised herself she would never let Leo suffer, no matter what it took. But now, she felt the crushing weight of reality pressing down on her. Tonight, she needed food. Not just for herself, though she was weak and tired, but for Leo. Every step she took, she whispered encouragement to him. "Almost there, my love. We'll find something soon. Just a little longer." But even as she said it, she did not know if it was true. Her eyes scanned the streets, looking for a sign, a place, anything that could help. As she walked, Maria noticed a bakery she had passed many times before. It was closed, but the warm light spilling from inside reminded her of what they lacked. She imagined the smell of bread and pastries, fresh and warm, and her stomach tightened with both longing and pain. She thought about knocking on the door, asking for leftovers, but she knew it might be dangerous. People often ignored those who were desperate, and some even treated them harshly. But tonight, desperation had taken over fear. Leo tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, I'm hungry," he whispered. His voice was soft, almost resigned, but it pierced Maria's heart. She knelt down, hugging him tightly. "I know, my love. I know. We'll find something, I promise," she said, her own voice shaking. She felt tears building behind her eyes, but blinked them back. Showing weakness would frighten Leo, and she could not let that happen. She had to keep hope alive, no matter how thin it felt. They continued walking, and Maria's mind raced through possibilities. Maybe a neighbor could spare something, or perhaps a small store would have unsold bread. But every shop they passed was closed, dark, and silent. The streets were empty except for a few late-night walkers, each busy with their own lives. Maria felt invisible, the cold making her bones ache, the hunger making her dizzy. She clutched Leo's hand tighter, trying to steady herself. Hours seemed to pass. Maria's legs ached, and her fingers were numb. But then, at the edge of the street, she saw a house unlike the others. It was well lit and welcoming. Smoke curled gently from the chimney, and the warm glow of light spilled onto the snow-covered path. Through the window, she could see a cozy living room, a table with food, and the warmth of a fire. Her heart skipped a beat. She had never seen such comfort so close, and yet so far from where she and Leo stood. A mixture of fear and hope filled her. Could she ask for help? Could she truly risk rejection or worse? But when she looked down at Leo, who was shivering and clutching her jacket, she knew she had no choice. Hunger, cold, and desperation left her with only one option. She had to try. Maria walked to the door, her hand trembling as she knocked. The sound echoed and she held her breath. Moments later, the door opened, revealing a woman who looked surprised to see her. Maria's clothes were torn and dirty, her hair tangled, and her face streaked with tears. But her eyes were fierce, determined. She saw no shame in her pleading, only love and desperation.
"Please," Maria said, her voice shaking.
I have no money, no food. My son is hungry. Please, just a little food.
I can't.
I can't let him go hungry tonight." She paused, tears rolling down her cheeks. I'll
do anything. Anything.
just, please, help my child." The woman at the door looked hesitant. She studied Maria and then down at the small boy clinging to her leg. Leo's eyes were wide and scared, and he hugged his mother tightly. There was something in their eyes, something raw and real, that touched the woman. She could see the truth in Maria's words, the absolute love and desperation of a mother fighting for her child. Maria waited, her heart pounding, hoping, praying. She felt the cold deep in her bones and hunger twisting her stomach, but she could not give up. This moment, this knock, was everything. It was the chance that could save Leo tonight. And as she stood there shivering in the cold, Maria realized that she had reached the point where fear no longer mattered. Only love did, only survival did. The door opened wider, and a warm, cautious smile appeared on the woman's face. "Come in," she said softly. "Let's get your son some food." Maria's heart leapt. Relief flooded through her, mixed with a sense of humility and gratitude she had never felt before. She took Leo's hand, and together they stepped inside, leaving the freezing night behind. The warmth hit her immediately, and Leo's eyes lit up at the sight of food and comfort. Maria allowed herself a small, quiet sigh of relief. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt a flicker of hope. She had faced the harshness of hunger and desperation, and now, through courage and love, she had found a glimmer of safety. She looked at Leo, who was already reaching for a piece of bread, and she knew that this night would be remembered forever. It was a night that reminded her that even in the darkest times, kindness existed, and sometimes reaching out, no matter how humbling, could change everything. Maria stepped inside the warm house, her legs shaking, both from the cold she had left behind and the relief that finally washed over her. Leo's small hands were tightly clasped around hers, and his eyes widened in awe at the cozy living room. A fire crackled softly in the hearth, sending flickers of golden light across the walls. The smell of freshly baked bread filled the air, comforting and almost dreamlike to Maria. She had not smelled anything so inviting in weeks, maybe months. The woman who had opened the door, Clara, stepped back and gestured for them to enter. "Sit here," she said gently, pointing to a small chair near the fire. "I'll get something for him to eat." Her voice was calm, but Maria could sense a mixture of caution and curiosity. It was not every day that strangers knocked on her door asking for help in such a vulnerable way. Yet Maria did not feel judged, just human. Leo immediately scampered toward the table, his eyes lighting up as he saw plates of food. Clara had placed a bowl of warm soup, some bread and fruit on the table. The boy's tiny hands reached out before he even realized he could speak, and Maria laughed softly despite the tears still threatening to fall. She had never seen him look so alive and happy in weeks. "Eat, Leo," Maria whispered. "It's all for you." Her voice trembled, and she brushed a tear from her cheek, trying to hide how deeply moved she was. Seeing her child finally getting food brought an overwhelming sense of relief, but also a strange shame. How had it come to this? She had been forced to ask a stranger for help just to keep her child alive. But even in that shame, there was gratitude, a sense that maybe there were still good people in the world. Clara watched quietly, her eyes softening as she observed the scene. "It's okay," she said, almost to herself. Then, louder, "I don't have much, but we can make sure he has enough tonight." Maria nodded, unable to find words. She had never felt such kindness in weeks, and she did not want to waste it with idle words. Leo ate quickly, hungrily devouring the soup and bread, occasionally glancing up at his mother with shining eyes. Maria's heart swelled. She had imagined this moment for months, a simple thing like food, and now it was real. She reached out and gently touched his hair, brushing it back from his face. "You're safe now, my love," she said softly. "I promise." As Leo ate, Maria allowed herself a few moments to look around the house. Everything seemed so orderly, warm, and secure. The walls were painted a soft cream color, decorated with small paintings and family photographs. A thick rug covered the floor, and books were stacked neatly on a nearby shelf. For Maria, it was almost a foreign world, a world she had long dreamed of, but had never believed she could be part of. Her thoughts drifted to the nights in her own apartment. The cold, the hunger, the fear that Leo would wake in the night crying from emptiness or cold. She had endured so much, and yet here she was, given a glimpse of hope. She realized that hope had a name. It was Clara, the woman who had opened her door without judgment.
"Maria," Clara said after a moment, breaking the silence.
"Can I ask what happened? Why are you out in the cold with your son?" Her voice was gentle, not accusatory. Maria looked at her, hesitating. Talking about her struggles was never easy. Pride had kept her from asking for help before, but now in this warmth she felt safe enough to speak. "I lost my job," Maria began, her voice quiet but steady. "The factory closed and I have been trying to find work ever since. But it's hard. I have no money, and my son, he gets hungry. I tried everything I could think of, but nothing worked. That's why I came here. I didn't know what else to do." Tears fell freely now, and Maria wiped them with the sleeve of her jacket. "I just wanted him to eat." Clara nodded, her expression softening further. "I understand," she said. "It's not easy being a parent in times like these. I can see how much you love him." She paused, then offered a small smile. "You did the right thing by coming here. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you a mother who will do anything for her child." Maria felt a lump in her throat. No one had ever said those words to her in such a gentle, understanding way. Most people had looked at her with pity, suspicion, or even anger. But Clara's words were different. They were healing. Maria swallowed hard, trying to contain her emotions. She could feel the tension in her shoulders begin to ease, just a little. Leo, having finished most of his food, climbed onto Maria's lap, still shivering slightly. Maria wrapped her arms around him, letting the warmth of the fire seep into her own body. She realized that this was more than just a meal. It was safety, comfort, and reassurance. For the first time in a long time, she could breathe without the constant weight of fear pressing down on her chest. Clara watched them for a moment, then went to the kitchen to bring more food. When she returned, she had a small plate of leftovers he had saved. "Take these," she said softly. "They should last for a day or two. I can't promise more every day, but this will help for now." Maria's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of gratitude, not despair.
"Thank you," Maria whispered, her voice barely audible.
"I don't know how to repay you," Clara shook her head. "No repayment needed. Just take care of your son, and take care of yourself." That's enough. As Leo finished eating, he looked up at Maria with shining eyes and a small smile. "Mama, I'm full," he said. His voice was weak but happy, and Maria hugged him tightly. "I know, my love," she whispered. "I know." She felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. It was the warmth of hope. The hope that they could survive, that things could get better. After a while, Clara suggested they stay for a little while to warm up. Maria was hesitant, but she agreed. She watched Leo rest near the fire, his breathing slow and even, finally at peace. For Maria, it was a rare moment of calm. She allowed herself to sit quietly, thinking about what had brought them to this point and what could come next. She realized that survival was not just about food or shelter. It was about connection, about finding people who cared enough to help. Clara had shown her that kindness still existed, even in a world that often seemed harsh and uncaring. Maria felt a sense of determination building inside her. She would not let this chance slip away. She would find a way to rebuild their lives, starting with the small victories of today. As the evening progressed, Clara shared stories of the community, of resources and programs that could help families in need. Maria listened intently, absorbing every detail. For the first time, she felt like there was a path forward, a way out of the endless struggle that had consumed her life. She asked questions, made notes in her mind, and promised herself that she would act on every opportunity. By the time they prepared to leave, Maria felt a mixture of exhaustion and hope. Leo was calm and warm, and she held him close as they stepped back into the night. The cold wind still bit at their faces, but it was less cruel now. They carried with them the warmth of a stranger's kindness and the spark of possibility that maybe, just maybe, life could improve. On the walk home, Maria thought about how fragile life could be, and yet how resilient she and Leo were. Every step they took was a reminder of the struggles they had faced and the challenges still ahead. But she also carried something new: hope, the courage to ask for help, and the knowledge that sometimes people could be kind beyond measure. That night, as they returned to their small apartment, Maria tucked Leo into bed, his tiny body finally warm and satisfied. She sat beside him, watching him sleep, and felt a rare peace settle over her. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring more challenges, more hunger, and more cold. But for now, she allowed herself to be grateful, to rest, and to dream of a better future. The night Maria knocked on Clara's door had changed something fundamental in her. It had reminded her that even in desperation there could be hope. It had shown her that love, pure, unyielding love for her child, could lead her to places she never imagined, and that courage and vulnerability could open doors she had never dared to approach. And in the quiet of that night, as Leo slept peacefully for the first time in days, Maria whispered a silent promise to herself and to her son. No matter how hard life got, she would never stop fighting for him, never stop asking for help when needed, and never stop believing that kindness and hope existed, even in the darkest times. After that night, Maria could not stop thinking about Clara's kindness. It lingered in her mind like a gentle light cutting through the darkness of their struggles. For days afterward, she replayed every detail: the warmth of the fire, the smell of the fresh bread, and the soft tone in Clara's voice. For the first time in weeks, Maria allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of the endless cycle of hunger and cold. The following morning, Maria woke to Leo's small voice calling her name. He had slept longer than usual, rested and peaceful, no longer haunted by hunger or shivers. She hugged him tightly, feeling his small body press against hers.
"Good morning, my love,"
she whispered.
"Did you sleep well?" Leo nodded, smiling weakly, and Maria felt a warmth in her heart that she had almost forgotten existed. It was hope, fragile but alive. Maria knew that they could not survive on kindness alone. She needed to find a way to provide for Leo herself, to regain some independence. But after weeks of failed job applications, rejected resumes, and endless waiting lines at shelters, her confidence was low. She had tried so hard and yet achieved so little. Still, the spark that Clara's generosity had ignited pushed her forward. She could not give up, Not now. Not when Leo was counting on her. The day was spent in small, careful steps. Maria walked with Leo to the local library, a place she had often avoided because she thought it was only for children with proper books and proper lives. But here she found warmth and quiet, a place where she could plan her next steps without the oppressive weight of hunger pressing down on her mind. She sat at a table with Leo beside her, scribbling notes about potential jobs, shelters, and food assistance programs she could contact. Every detail mattered. Every small possibility could make a difference. Even as she worked, Maria felt a twinge of fear. What if the kindness she had experienced was a one-time event? What if Clara could not help again? The thought made her stomach twist, but she forced herself to focus on what she could control. She had Leo's safety to think about, and she had to act. No matter how scared she was, no matter how tired, she had to keep going. That evening, Maria returned to Clara's home, this time not for immediate help, but for advice. Clara greeted them warmly, noticing the determination in Maria's eyes. "I see you've been thinking about your next steps," she said softly. Maria nodded, grateful for the understanding.
I want to do more than just survive, she explained. I want to give Leo a proper life.
"I don't know how yet, but I have to try." Clara listened patiently and then offered suggestions. She told Maria about local job training programs, community kitchens, and temporary housing options. She explained that asking for help was not shameful, and that there were people willing to support those who were determined to help themselves. Maria absorbed every word, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. It was more than advice. It was a roadmap, a guide to rebuilding their lives step by step. Over the next few days, Maria followed Clara's guidance. She signed up for a job training program at a nearby community center, learning new skills that could increase her chances of finding stable work. She attended every class, sometimes bringing Leo along and often leaving exhausted but determined. Each small success, whether it was completing an assignment or learning a new skill, gave her hope that she could provide for her son. Maria also began visiting food kitchens regularly, sometimes sharing a smile with the volunteers, sometimes quietly accepting the help she once would have been too proud to ask for. Each meal she brought home for Leo reminded her that survival was not shameful, it was an act of love and responsibility. And as Leo ate, laughed, and played again, Maria felt a sense of fulfillment she had almost forgotten existed. Yet the journey was far from easy. Some days were worse than others. She faced rejection letters, long lines, and nights when the cold seeped through even her best efforts to stay warm. Leo would sometimes cry from hunger or discomfort, and Maria's heart would ache, wondering if she was failing him despite her best efforts. She had moments when she wanted to give up, to stop trying, but she always remembered the night at Clara's house, the warmth, the food, and the understanding, and she forced herself to keep going. Through it all, Maria began to notice small victories, a kind word from a volunteer, a new recipe she could make with limited ingredients, a neighbor offering leftover vegetables. These little things became signs that life could improve. She started to believe that their circumstances, though difficult, were not permanent. Change was possible, and she was determined to make it happen. One afternoon, Maria received a phone call from a local shelter. They had a spot available for her and Leo. It was temporary housing, but it would provide warmth, safety, and access to food. Maria's heart leapt. She immediately accepted, knowing that this opportunity could be a stepping stone toward stability. The thought of having a place where Leo could sleep without shivering, where they could eat without fear, filled her with an indescribable joy. When Maria and Leo arrived at the shelter, they were greeted by volunteers who helped them settle in. The rooms were simple but clean, and the other families there shared stories of struggle and resilience. Maria realized she was not alone. So many people had faced hardships like hers, and yet they continued to survive, to hope, to care for their children. It was a community bound by perseverance, and Maria felt a sense of belonging she had not known in years. As the days passed, Maria's confidence grew. She attended job interviews, sometimes multiple in one day, and slowly began to see progress. She learned to budget carefully, stretching every dollar to cover essentials. She found joy in small victories, A full pantry, a warm bed for Leo, a job offer that finally seemed within reach. Each success built upon the last, and Maria began to believe that a better life was not just a dream, it could be a reality. Through it all, Clara remained a guiding presence. She visited often, bringing supplies, advice, and encouragement. Maria appreciated her deeply, not only for the practical help, but for the reminder that human kindness still existed. Clara's support reinforced the lesson that asking for help is not weakness, it is courage. One evening, Maria sat with Leo by the fire at the shelter, watching him play with a small toy she had managed to buy with a few coins. She smiled, her heart full. The journey was far from over, and challenges would continue, but for the first time, Maria felt truly hopeful. She knew that as long as she persevered, as long as she continued to fight for her son, they could survive, and even thrive. The bond between Maria and Leo grew stronger through every hardship. Each struggle they faced together deepened their love and understanding of one another. Maria's determination inspired Leo, and his resilience gave her strength. They were a team, united against adversity, and nothing could break their resolve. As the night fell over the shelter, Maria reflected on how far they had come. The desperation of a few weeks ago had given way to cautious optimism. They had found warmth, food, and safety, not from luck, but through perseverance, courage, and the kindness of others. Maria understood now that survival was not just about meeting basic needs. It was about hope, community, and the unyielding love of a parent for her child. And as she watched Leo drift into sleep, safe and warm for the first time in months, Maria felt a quiet but powerful determination grow within her. She would not stop here. She would continue to rebuild their lives, step by step, day by day. The night at Clara's house had been the turning point, but the journey was hers to walk, and Maria was ready to walk it, no matter how long or difficult, for the sake of her beloved son. Life at the shelter was not perfect, but it was a lifeline for Maria and Leo. The warmth, the steady meals, and the safety they now had were things Maria had once thought impossible. For the first time in months, she could breathe without feeling the constant grip of fear and despair. Yet she knew that the shelter was only temporary. Her ultimate goal was to create a stable, independent life for her son, a home where he could grow, play, and dream without the shadow of hunger or cold looming over him. Maria spent her mornings preparing for job interviews. She dressed in the few decent clothes she owned, ironing them carefully even though the shelter's small iron sometimes struggled to heat properly. She would practice speaking clearly in front of a mirror, trying to shake off the lingering anxiety that had become a part of her life. Every interview was a challenge, not just because of her lack of recent work experience, but because of the constant worry about Leo. She needed to make a good impression while carrying the invisible weight of desperation, but she refused to give up. Leo adjusted to life at the shelter more quickly than Maria expected. He made friends with other children, sharing toys and laughter in ways that warmed Maria's heart. Seeing him play freely without worry reminded her of how childhood was meant to be, bright, innocent, and full of joy. But she also noticed the traces of fear in his eyes, moments when he would pause, looking around as if expecting the warmth and safety to vanish. Maria would kneel beside him and whisper, "It's okay, Leo. We're safe now. I'm here. I will never let anything happen to you." Each time he would relax, trusting her words, and Maria felt a quiet strength in that bond. Even with the shelter's help, life was not easy. Maria juggled multiple responsibilities. Some days she attended job training sessions, learning skills in data entry and customer service. Other days she worked short shifts at nearby stores, saving every penny for rent, food, and small necessities for Leo. She quickly learned how to stretch limited resources, making meals that were both nutritious and filling. Every dollar mattered, and Maria approached her new routine with careful planning and determination. One particularly cold morning, Maria received a phone call that would change everything. A small local business had contacted her after reviewing her application. They offered a temporary part-time position, with the possibility of becoming permanent if she performed well. Maria's heart raced. It wasn't a high-paying job, but it was a start. She knew it could provide the foundation she needed to eventually secure a stable home for Leo. That day, as she returned to the shelter with the news, she could hardly contain her excitement. She hugged Leo tightly and whispered, "We're going to be okay. I promise, my love, we are going to be okay." The first days at the new job were challenging. Maria had to learn quickly, adapt to a structured schedule, and manage her exhaustion. Some evenings she would return to the shelter utterly tired, her body aching from standing and walking all day. Yet every time she saw Leo's face light up at the sight of her, she knew the effort was worth it. His laughter, his curiosity, his small achievements at school, they all reminded her why she could not give up. As weeks passed, Maria began to see the fruits of her hard work. She received positive feedback from her supervisors, who admired her dedication and willingness to learn. Her confidence grew, and for the first time in a long while she felt capable. She began to plan for the future, not just survival, but growth. She thought about a home they could call their own, about saving for school supplies and small treats for Leo, about giving him a childhood free from constant worry. However, life remained unpredictable. One day, Leo fell sick with a high fever. Maria's heart raced as she held him, worried and anxious. She rushed him to a nearby clinic, worried about the costs and the logistics. Thankfully, the doctor assured her it was a common viral infection and would pass with rest and fluids. Maria stayed by his side, nursing him back to health, never letting him out of her sight. Those moments reminded her how fragile their lives were and how important it was to maintain every small advantage they had. During this time, Maria leaned heavily on the support of the community around her. Clara continued to visit, providing guidance, encouragement, and supplies when needed. The shelter volunteers offered advice and emotional support, reminding Maria that she was not alone in her struggles. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, gave her the strength to keep pushing forward. She realized that accepting help did not make her weak, it made her resilient. As the months progressed, Maria began to see real change. She was earning steadily, saving carefully, and gaining confidence in her ability to provide for Leo. She managed to secure a small room outside the shelter, a modest space, but one that they could call home. It had a small kitchen, a single bedroom, and just enough space for Leo to play. That first night in their new place, Maria held Leo as he slept, feeling the soft warmth of the blankets and the sense of security she had longed for. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief and gratitude she felt. Maria also started to focus on Leo's education. She enrolled him in a local school, hoping to provide him with a normal routine and the opportunities she had once dreamed of for him. Every morning she walked him to school, holding his hand tightly, feeling proud as he joined other children in the playground. Seeing him learn, laugh, and grow gave her an indescribable joy. It reminded her that all the hardships, the hunger, and the cold nights had been worth it. She was giving him a life she had once only imagined. Despite the progress, Maria remained humble and cautious. She understood that life could change in an instant. She kept careful records of her finances, planned for emergencies, and never took a single day of stability for granted. Every small success was celebrated, every challenge faced with courage. Maria's resilience became a quiet but powerful force in her life, guiding every decision she made for Leo's well-being. As the seasons changed, Maria began to reflect on their journey. From the desperation of those nights when she had no food for her child, to the first meal at Clara's house, to securing a job and a room of their own, it all felt surreal. She often thought about how one act of kindness had set off a chain reaction that allowed them to survive, adapt, and grow. It was a reminder that human compassion could have a profound impact on lives. Maria also found ways to give back. She volunteered occasionally at the shelter, helping other families who faced struggles similar to hers. She shared her story quietly, hoping to inspire and guide others, showing them that perseverance and hope could lead to a better life. In helping others, Maria felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment she had never experienced before. By the end of Part 4, Maria had transformed from a desperate, fearful mother into a determined, capable woman. She had faced setbacks, challenges, and moments of fear, but she had never given up. Her bond with Leo had grown stronger through every struggle, and she had learned to embrace the support and kindness of others without shame. They were no longer living in constant fear, and for the first time in a long while, Maria allowed herself to believe that the future could hold stability, joy, and peace. And as Maria tucked Leo into their small but safe bed that night, she whispered softly, "We've come so far, my love, and we are going to go even further, I promise." Leo smiled in his sleep, clutching his small blanket, and Maria felt a quiet, steady hope fill her heart. This hope would guide her, giving her the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and the courage to continue building a life that was truly worth living. Months had passed since Maria and Leo had first stepped into Clara's home, desperate and hungry. Life had slowly transformed from one of uncertainty and fear to something more stable. Though still modest, Maria often reflected on the journey they had endured, the nights of hunger, the cold apartments, and the endless worry about the future. It had been the hardest period of her life, but it had also shown her the strength she never knew she possessed. Now, with a small, rented room of their own, Maria and Leo were beginning to feel a sense of normalcy. It wasn't luxurious by any means. The walls were plain, and the furniture was second-hand, but it was theirs. Every corner of the small room was filled with the quiet determination of a mother who had fought for her child. A small kitchen allowed her to prepare simple meals, a bed kept them warm at night, and a small table became the center of homework, drawing, and family dinners. Maria watched Leo as he sat at the table one morning coloring a picture for school. His little face was bright with concentration, his tongue peeking out slightly as he focused. She smiled, feeling a surge of pride. He was thriving in ways she had never imagined possible. The simple act of drawing seemed monumental, proof that he could enjoy childhood without constant hunger or fear. For Maria, these small moments were treasures. Each laugh, each smile, each day of good health was a victory. Her work had become more stable, and she was gradually earning enough to cover rent, groceries, and small extras for Leo. It wasn't a life of luxury, but it was a life of dignity and independence. Maria took pride in every paycheck, every bill paid on time, and every meal prepared for her son. Each step forward was a reminder that perseverance could yield results, that courage and hard work mattered, and that she was capable of creating a safe and happy life for Leo. One morning, Maria walked Leo to school, as she had done many times before. The streets were alive with children laughing, parents hurrying to work, and the hum of daily life. Leo ran ahead briefly, waving at friends he had made, and Maria felt her chest swell with joy. She realized how far they had come, from wandering cold streets, begging for scraps of food, to now being part of a community. It was a transformation that went beyond material needs. It was a restoration of hope, confidence, and connection.
Even with the progress, Maria never forgot the kindness that had changed their lives.
Clara's generosity had been the spark, the beginning of a chain of events that allowed Maria to regain stability. Maria often thought about how one simple act of compassion could ripple outward, changing lives in ways that could never be measured. She promised herself that she would carry that lesson forward. Over time, Maria began volunteering at the community center that had supported her. She helped other families who faced struggles like hers, guiding them through food lines, helping with forms for job training programs, and offering advice from her own experience. In helping others, Maria discovered a new sense of purpose. She realized that even small acts of support could give someone else hope, just as Clara's kindness had given her and Leo hope when they were at their lowest. The journey was not without challenges. Some days were harder than others. Leo occasionally got sick, bills had to be carefully balanced, and exhaustion often weighed heavily on Maria. But each time a challenge arose, she faced it with the lesson she had learned: persistence, resourcefulness, and courage. She had seen what despair looked like, and she refused to return to it. Every obstacle became an opportunity to strengthen her resolve and to ensure Leo's life continued to improve. One evening, Maria sat with Leo at the small kitchen table, helping him with homework. He was learning new words and math problems, his small hand clutching a pencil tightly. Maria realized that this moment, the quiet of learning, The warmth of a small home and the comfort of a full belly was something she had longed for during her darkest nights. She could almost hear the echo of her desperation, the knocking on Clara's door, and she shivered slightly, remembering the fear and uncertainty. But now there was only gratitude and a sense of accomplishment. Maria also began saving for the future. Every week, she set aside a little money for emergencies, school supplies, and small treats for Leo. The small savings were a symbol of progress, a tangible measure of the life they were building together. She taught Leo the importance of being careful with money, of planning ahead, and of valuing what they had. Leo absorbed these lessons eagerly, often repeating them back in his childlike way, and Maria felt proud to see him growing not only in health and happiness, but in responsibility and awareness.
As the seasons changed, so did their lives.
Summer brought new opportunities for fun and adventure. Maria took Leo to parks, small local festivals, and simple outings that allowed him to experience the joys of childhood fully. For Maria, seeing his laughter in the sunlight was one of the greatest rewards. She realized that even amidst modest circumstances, life could still be filled with moments of happiness and love. One quiet evening, Maria reflected on the journey they had taken. She remembered the desperation that had brought them to Clara's door, the cold nights, the hunger, and the endless worry. She thought about the courage it had taken to ask for help, the kindness they had received, and the determination that had carried her forward. It was a journey that had tested her in every way, but it had also revealed her strength, resilience, and the power of love. Maria knew their journey was ongoing. Life would continue to present challenges, but she now faced them with confidence and hope. She had learned that survival was more than mere existence. It was about building a life worth living, teaching her child to dream, and embracing the help and kindness that the world could offer. She felt ready for whatever the future might hold, knowing that she and Leo could face it together. That night, as she tucked Leo into bed, Maria held him close and whispered, "We've come so far, my love, and we are only just beginning. No matter what comes next, I promise we will face it together." Leo hugged her back, his small hands clutching her tightly, and Maria felt a warmth that was deeper than any fire or blanket. It was the warmth of hope restored, of dreams rekindled, and of a life that was now filled with possibility. In the weeks and months that followed, Maria continued to build on the foundation she had created. She sought better job opportunities, worked tirelessly to save money, and planned for a future where Leo could have the education, security, and happiness she had always wished for him. She never forgot the lessons learned in hardship, the value of asking for help, the importance of community, and the resilience of the human spirit. Maria also shared her story quietly with others, offering encouragement and inspiration to those facing similar struggles. She spoke about the power of hope, the strength of a mother's love, and the kindness of strangers. Her story became a testament to the idea that even in the darkest moments, light could be found and lives could be changed. By the end of Part 5, Maria and Leo's lives had been transformed not only by necessity but by courage, determination, and compassion. They were no longer defined by hunger, fear, or desperation. Instead, they were defined by resilience, hope, and the deep bond between mother and child. Maria had not only survived, she had created a life that was meaningful, stable, and full of potential. And in the quiet of their small but safe home, Maria often reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From desperate nights on the cold streets to the warmth of Clara's kindness, from fear to hope, from survival to a life filled with possibility. It was a journey that showed her above all else that love and determination could overcome even the greatest hardships. Maria knew the challenges would continue to come, as they always do in life. But she also knew that with courage, perseverance, and the support of those who cared, she could face them all. And most importantly, she knew that Leo would grow up in a world where hope was possible, where love was abundant, and where dreams were within reach. As the night settled over their home, Maria held Leo close, feeling the warmth of the blankets, the security of the room, and the deep, abiding love that had carried them through so much. She whispered once more, softly but firmly. We are safe, we are together, and we will be okay. Always. Leo smiled in his sleep and Maria closed her eyes, finally allowing herself to rest, confident that the life they were building together was one of hope, love, and endless possibilities.